Welcome to Soggy Pizza episode number 5. Today we're going to talk about the coronavirus. It seems to be the big thing to talk about. I'm Alan.
I'm Sean, and I'm going to be doing most of the talking about it because we actually talked about it in school. So obviously, I'm not 100% sure if these facts are true or false. So of course, do your own research because I'm not a doctor. So I guess you ask the questions and I'll answer them.
Good point there, Sean. So, in school, what have they taught you about it? Because I know outside of school, in the real world, not school, we've only heard through the news, through paper, news, TV, just what they're telling us. Really, no one knows the facts on it. All we know is that Costco has a run on toilet paper. People are buying toilet paper, water, hand soap, hand sanitizer. And we're really not sure why. Sean and I went looking for hand sanitizer the other day, couldn't find them anywhere. And we went to a few places. So, what does this all mean? I'm not sure. Let's get some facts from Sean. Sean, what did they tell you about it in school?
Well, they told us quite a few things. They told us it was actually just one teacher who has a degree in biology. So she was talking about the death rates, and we just did a 15-minute talk session basically with the students asking the teacher questions and she was answering. So we were talking about the things like the death rate of it, the incubation period, how it gets transmitted, and kind of how to stay safe. So sort of all of those things. Do you have any questions?
Well, I think just explain to us what they told us, what she told you on it.
So basically what they told us, or they didn't really tell us, we were asked and then they told us the answers to that. So what it was, there's this thing called an incubation period, which is the period between when you first get the virus inside of your body and then you start to show symptoms. So basically that was anywhere between 2 days to 14 days. So that's where all that talk of if you get the coronavirus or COVID-19 is more proper. If you get it, then that's why people are saying that it takes a good 2 weeks or so before you start noticing anything, because that's the incubation period.
So, Sean, tell me, what are the symptoms of it? What did they tell you?
They didn't actually tell us the symptoms. We more to search that one up, but I found that it is coughing, shortness of breath, and fever. So basically, you want to watch if you come back from a holiday. If you go on a holiday and then you come back, and then after a couple days you start feeling, you start having a fever, it's harder to breathe, and you start coughing and sneezing, then you should probably go do something about that.
So, when does that take place? So, when you're not feeling like this, how many days could it be? 2 days, 14 days? Like when you start feeling sick, like when you first get it to when your symptoms arise, how many days? Do you know?
Yeah, incubation period is what that was. 2 to 14 days, about.
So, and what did they say? And what is the spread of it? How is it spread?
Things like effectively anything that's related to moisture that comes from the body, such as like coughing and sneezing, spit, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, all that sort of things. Like anything that is related to moisture in any form that comes from the human body.
So, how many people do they say this will affect?
This I'm not 100% sure on, and we did actually talk about this in school. I actually found this on the news. Don't remember specifically which one, but it was on the TV. So, anywhere between 40% of humanity to 70% of humanity, but that's only if we don't control it properly. But don't quote me on that because I'm not sure if that's 100% true.
So, in school, did they say we're controlling it properly?
Kind of. It depends on the government and how much the citizens of the country are willing to listen to the governments. We were talking about how a communist government such as China versus a more, I suppose, capitalistic government such as America would handle these things. Like China, because it's communist and authoritarian, it has a lot more control over its people and its cities and its markets. So it's able to lock down tons of cities within such a short amount of time. That's why China has locked down so much stuff in a short amount of time. Well, America is struggling to do that because in America, when it's such a in the time like this, when it's such a crazy divide between everyone, like 50% of the people do like the government, while the other 50% absolutely hate it. only 50% is going to listen to it if they like it versus if they don't. So America will struggle to lock down the other 50% when it's easy to lock down the 50% that's actually willing to listen.
Now, what about Canada? How do we fall into place with all this from your point of view? Remember, everybody, this is just our point of view. Facts, certain facts are absolutely true. Some are hearsay, some are just what we've looked up, but these are our opinions, our facts, what we've read. You do your own research. Don't take our word on it. This is just what we heard and what we studied up on. So, Sean, what do you think about Canada? Chance of all this?
Canada would do definitely pretty good. Canada has a really good healthcare system for the most part, and also it's the people, like the citizens of Canada, don't really hate the government to the extent that America does. I wouldn't say. I mean, of course we do, but not as much. So it's a little bit easier to quarantine more people if we need to. So Canada's I assume that Canada would be pretty good if it were to outbreak a lot.
So, what is when we saw China when you did that NASA pollution video tracker? What was that?
So yeah, there was two pictures taken by NASA. One of them was or they were both to show the pollution. The first one was a picture of the of China, basically, with yellow and red everywhere to show that there's this huge amount of pollution
Before
everywhere.
quarantine.
Yeah, that was before quarantine.
Yeah.
And then after quarantine, it was completely just blank. There's literally no pollution anywhere due to nothing happening.
So, what do you think with all? So, what were the numbers thrown around of how many people will die from it? How many people will be infected? What numbers did you see on internet or wherever did you see?
So I actually calculated this myself, based on the predicted amount that would possibly get infected in a certain scenario and the current death rate. So current death rate is about 3.5, and you're between 3.5 to 4% right now. And with the predicted 40% to 70%, I calculated that it would be roughly, for 40%, that would be 3 billion around that area.
Wait, 40% of the world population,
Entire
and
world
that's
population.
7.5 billion people right now, I believe. Is
It's
that right?
8 billion.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that would be about anywhere between 3 to 4 people would be about 40%. So I just assumed 3 billion for the sake of it. So
Infected?
infected. That's
Okay.
at the best case scenario with the predicted if we cannot actually handle it properly. And so if you take the death rate, which is about 3.5% of about 3 billion is roughly 120 million. Of course, don't listen to me on that one necessarily. I That's more just my predicted that I've taken from the facts that I've heard, but they could easily not be true. And then with a 70% that I heard, which is about 5.5 billion people around that area, about 3.5% of that is about 220 million people.
Again, this is just worst case scenario. These are just theories. This is just what if.
Absolutely.
Not saying this is going to happen. This is just what if.
Yeah.
So, and coronavirus, and people you see here a lot of people saying coronavirus is worse than the flu. In what way?
Well, first of all, death rate is 4 times as much. The flu is roughly 0.8% around that area, while coronavirus is 3.5. So that's roughly 4 times as much. So
But right now, didn't 14,000 people have died of the flu in the States, right?
about,
Last year or
sure,
something like that. We're,
sure.
we're, we're, we're guessing right in that ballpark. How many people have died from the coronavirus? Not many.
Yeah, I mean, well, out of the 100,000 people infected so far, or about 100,000, it's a little bit more at this point. About 3,500 people have died, which is where they're getting the 3.5% death rate from.
So, these are all interesting facts and figures. Are we gonna? What do you think? Do you think it'll ever get to that point?
The point where it's 40% to
Yeah.
70%. No way. That because those numbers are predictions if the governments of the world can't actually handle what's going on and the people are still being stupid and deciding to travel everywhere when they know they're sick. But obviously, you can't completely blame it on that because Coronavirus pops up after about um, 2 to 14 days, the incubation period. But even if you don't show symptoms, which is called being asymptomatic, which means you are perfectly healthy at that point, you can still have the virus within you, and you can still spread it around, even if you have zero chance of dying.
So I think one thing that is happening is the fear mongering on the internet, on newspaper, on media. Is it is it necessary?
Um,
What do you think?
no, that's how news works. We actually talked about this in I believe it was, I don't remember what class. I think it was English class. We actually talked about this, the different kinds of biases in the world. So there's a thing called bad news bias, where it's that if there's good news on the news, people aren't going to return to the news because they know that everything's good in the world. But if there's bad news in the media, then people are going to keep returning to get more of the information because they're worried about it, obviously. So it's more just how it's more just how psychology works and how the media works that all this fear is going on.
There's a certain aspect to, yes, it is be smart, be safe, like no question about it. But do you people are willing to stop living their lives, not leave the house? Is that realistic? Like, is it realistic? I understand that people are scared and you can't get sick, but just because you get sick doesn't mean you're going to die.
Yeah.
That's my take on it. Is that right? Wrong? I don't know. I can't stop living my life because of a coronavirus that somebody may have, may not have, or it might get to us and it may not.
Yeah, exactly. Like if I get quarantined, I won't be complaining too much because I don't need to go to school. But obviously, for someone that does need that money and does need to work because they need to pay off their bills or whatever, then yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the main issues with the virus right now. That if people are taking like 14 days off, which is the quarantine period, the market, the like economy, the world economy is going to crash because no one's working. So that's one of the main issues with it.
And that's exactly what is that's why the markets are where they are because people aren't working. They're not going. Um, you stop China from shipping anything out or receiving anything. It's a big hole in the market.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, he's a theorist. He a theorist,
A
whatever they call it.
theorist.
He believes that this was set up by the governments to sink the markets, to get rid of all paper, get rid of all money, like paper money,
Yeah.
and to putting everything back to reset again. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. There's so many different theories out there. I don't know what's going on. I just know that for me personally, you have to live. You can't stop living. If you get sick, I don't want to get sick. Don't get me wrong. No one wants to get sick, but it's no, if you're gonna get sick, you're gonna get sick.
Exactly.
Keep yourself out of harm's way. Don't get stuck in a plane or a boat. But saying that, I was at the hockey game last night with 18,000 other people. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. But as a young man like yourself, what are your thoughts on it?
Wash your hands. That's the best way of getting rid of it. Wash your hands. If someone sneezes on your face, wash your face. If somebody coughs or sneezes on you, wash that area right away, and you should be fine.
And that's what they're saying, right?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. If someone sneezes, coughs on you, whatever, wash that area fast because if you wash it fast enough, you have zero chance of getting sick.
So what's the point of hand sanitizer? Hand sanitizer, that's so you don't spread the germs.
I think hand sanitizer is more just a lazy way of washing your hands with soap. So
Well, you don't.
it's not necessarily like lazy, but more portable, I suppose.
Well,
But
you can't
obviously,
always. You don't always have soap and water.
exactly.
That's what hand
Yeah,
sanitizer is
more
for.
like a replacement and stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, it's not like the best replacement, but if you have soap and water near you, and you prefer to use hand sanitizer, just use the soap and water. It's safer.
Well, it's interesting what's going on because it's affecting the entire world.
Yeah.
Like it really is. People aren't leaving their houses. It's just really scaring a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, that's our podcast for today. We remember we express these opinions are our opinions. Some are bit facts, some are what we've read, some are what we heard, and our opinions. So don't be running off and telling all your friends you heard this on Soggy Pizza Podcast. It's just our opinions, as we must express again. It is our opinions. After saying that, um, we're going to say goodbye. This was Soggy Pizza. Goodbye from Alan.
And goodbye from Sean. And goodbye.